Hey guys, it's Rachael Podolsky here. Today we are on episode 5 of Real Time with Rachael. We're talking about whatever is interesting to me because it's my podcast. And today what's interesting to me is my super wonderful cycling Beachbody coach, Jared Sklar. I'm a super fan. I can't even believe that you agreed to come on this podcast. I am so happy to have you here. Just welcome to the Real Time with Rachael podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. You know, it's so funny. Like when I'm on the bike, you know, I love being on the bike. I love teaching on BODi and interacting with the podcast, but actually having like a real discussion and like a real dialogue is something that I really always look forward to. So I'm just so excited to be here and thanks for having me.
You are like, you just totally changed my whole deal with working out. I mean, I'm a serial gym rat, always have been, always been pretty good shape. Went to the gym every morning, 6 a.m. with like all the old men at our club here in Seattle. And it just, when, thank God, COVID hit, I like couldn't go to the gym anymore. And my life kind of changed because I started doing Beachbody. And you weren't there yet, but I did 21 day fix with Autumn. Then I got all into the Fixate. Then I did 80-day obsession. And most of my friends and anyone who follows me on social followed me every day, making some kind of like crazy face, like afterwards. That's for those who don't know, that's an hour-long shit show. And it was really good. But then I was like, I want to do everything. But everyone who knows me knows I'm afraid to ride bikes. I have a fear of bicycles. I was never going to get the mixed bike. It wasn't going to happen. And then one day I woke up and I was like, I'm getting it. And then I turned it on and there you were. And you just bring so much. So tell us, okay, I'm done now. Tell us how you got to Beachbody. Tell us a little bit about who you are, for if there's anyone on the planet that does not know, because I can't imagine there is, but there might be a few.
Yeah, so I guess like the short version of the long story, you know, essentially my entire life I've been overweight and out of shape. Like that basically, you know, being a Midwest kid and growing up in the family that I did, like diet and paying attention to nutrition was not something that I necessarily ever paid attention to. And so I was always overweight. I was always into sports. I played baseball and hockey and like other pickup sports growing up, but I was always like a bigger guy. And so it basically came to a head it was like the end of 2018, 2019, something around that time. I was in a flag football league and I went out for a pass and like pulled my hamstring really, really bad. And like, I like winced off the field and like rubbed some dirt on it and basically was like in denial that anything bad happened. And I like kept playing. And so week after week I would show up and every single week it would get worse. And then eventually I was just like, you know what, I got to go to the doctor and get this figured out and see what's going on. So go to the doctor. He basically said, you have a bad hamstring pull. You either have to take some time off and let yourself recover, or if you keep going out there, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll just take some time off and let myself recover. And as I was walking out the door, he asked me something that, you know, 4 or 5 years later, I'm looking back on it. He asked me a question that like essentially changed my life. He asked me if I had ever tried cycling, and my gut reaction or you know, gut response to him was like, absolutely no. You can never catch me dead on one of those bikes. Like living in LA, you know, there's a pretty big cycling community. The cyclists in LA were always the ones like in full like decked out neon spandex that are like getting me late for work. You know what I mean? So like that was my first reaction. Or like the people in the cycling classes who are like dancing up and down doing all the choreography. And I was just like, never in a million years could you catch me down in one of these things. But his response to that was essentially like, listen, like rest will help you get back. But if you really want to progress and come back stronger, or even, you know, close to where you were, if you try cycling, it's low impact and it'll help you recover quicker. And so he was like, listen, go to the gym 4 to 6 days a week, 45 minutes a day, and just go on the bike and report back in a month. And so I begrudgingly listened to him, and I was a member of a gym, and I knew they had a cycling room. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to like plan my calendar around the class calendar because I didn't want to be caught dead in this freaking class. And so I would go during the off time. The lights were all off. I would be in the back corner by myself. And so after a month, I went back to the doctor. My leg was completely healed. But a byproduct of that was I had lost 20 pounds in a month. And being the weight that I was, that was the best I'd felt in years. Like, I don't know the last time I had felt that good.
Wow. I didn't know that whole story. I just knew that you had been a little bit of a bigger guy before. That's amazing.
And so essentially I was just like, you know what? Like, I feel great. Just because my leg is healed doesn't mean I have to stop now. And so I just kept going at it. And after a total of 6 months, I lost 100 pounds. And my life was like set on this completely different journey than I had ever expected. Yeah.
Yeah. So what year is this? 2019?
This was like 2018, 2019. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen pictures. I follow you religiously on social media. So I've seen the befores, but I didn't know the whole story of how that happened. But you bring like an incredible energy and passion to, exercising in general. Mm-hmm. And do you feel like you've always had that?
I've always felt passionate about sports. Like I love, to this day, I'm just like a diehard sports fan. I love playing sports. But it was that like unlocking this new sort of passion for mine for cycling that like really helped me drive towards not just competition, but like just like personal development and being able to, find new fitness passions and things like that. So like,
yeah,
I was the type of person, so to give you a little bit of context, I was over 100 pounds overweight. I was the person every January 1st, like, it's almost January now. I was the person that was like, okay, January 1st, I'm going to like set all these goals. And then I would go to the gym for 3 weeks and I would burn out and then I'd be back to square one. So like, right. That kind of gives you, I guess, like a little bit of context. Cause like I had no direction. I had no like real discipline. I would just be the guy that would be like, okay, January 1st, I'm going to show up to the gym. I don't know what I'm doing. There's a bunch of people lifting weights. I'm just going to mirror whatever they're doing. And then that's it. You know what I mean? So like, that was what I would do. And then I would get burnt out because I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. I was just kind of showing up and going through the motions. So
your passion definitely comes through.
Yeah. Cycling definitely helped me build like more discipline around fitness for sure.
That's incredible. Let's talk about January 1st, because I told you in an email, one of the things that I thought we should talk about is it's looming. It's coming for us. And, right. Those of us who exercise regularly, January 1st is just a day of the year. But for a lot of people on a fitness journey, which is a lot of us, January 1st is like a new start. And, we all know that like, gym memberships go up in January and then they go down in February. But the great thing is, especially I have to just say, and I'm not being paid by Carl to say this, but like I do love Beachbody because you don't have to go join the gym.
Right.
Is that, every day is a great workout. I personally, I had some surgery in October and I have not been able to work out. I'm just allowed to now. And I told you that I was getting back on the bike the other day. Still haven't done it. So
we gotta get you back on.
What advice? I wanted to get on your birthday ride on Monday and I came and went, but what advice can you give me, Rachael Podolsky? I'm pretty fit, but I'm like, that first workout is so tough after taking time off. What should I do?
I have two pillars that I think of when it comes to fitness. The first one is that whatever you do, you have to love it, right? Because if you don't love it, if you're just doing it just to show up, then at the end of the day, you're going to fall off, right? Like it's something that like, if you're not having, it's just like at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, you're not going to commit to it. And then the second one is that we're looking at the long term, right? So like a lot of the time people will go to the gym for 2-3 weeks and they expect these huge results, right? Like in my case, I was like on a polar opposite side. So like there was a lot of room to gain or room to make up. But at the end of the day, we're looking at long term. So like if we're doing something, if we're showing up to the gym, if we're trying to get after our first workout, number one, we have to love it. But also on the other hand, like it has to be something, or at least like be able to set a roadmap where we're going to be able to stay at it consistently over a long period of time, because we're trying to develop like behavioral changes. You know what I mean? A lot of the time, if we're trying to set a goal, we have to create a lifestyle change. It's not just about, the most recent diet that's going to help us lose 3 pounds. And then once we lose that 3 pounds, we're going to fall, we hit the goal, then we fall back, and then all of a sudden we gain the 3 pounds back. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's about the long term. And a lot of the time, like, our brains are wired to think short term. And it's just all about, being able to maintain that same consistency over a long period of time.
Do you believe that setting some kind of like goal, I don't know what it is. Like, remember when you did the Tour de Pants and everybody had their jeans hung on there?
Yeah.
That was like a goal, right? Like, get into your jeans. And do you believe that goal setting, like that kind of thing, I'm just like a regular worker outer. So I'm asking just for anybody who's listening right now, like, I wonder if it would help me to set some kind of goal, but like usually I just always work out. But is there something like, should you hang a pair of jeans? Should you put a picture of yourself in a bikini on your fridge, or is that just torture?
I mean, honestly, it's whatever. It depends person to person, right? Everybody has different motivators. For me, the Tour de Pants thing, it was like a catchy name, and I thought that it really helped build awareness of cycling.
Did you think of that?
No, that was Carl. I'm not smart enough to come up with something like that. Come on.
I thought it was so cute.
But, at the end of the day, it's like the amount of people that, that name drew so many people to the bike and whatever.
Totally.
Like, it wasn't about the pant size at the end of the day. It was about gaining momentum and finding, finding that discipline where, like, if I show up 5 days a week, sit on the bike for 45 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day, whatever it was, like, then who knows, like, just sort of like my story, like, you never know what that little push, what that little like snowball can eventually lead to if you just stay with it.
Yeah, I really hope that, people will listen to this and be motivated. It's like, fitness is fun. It doesn't have to be like an ass kicker every day. I mean, it's like you're like the first cycle class I did, and I just picked one. There's many Beachbody cycle instructors on the mixed bike, and I just happened to hit you. And then the next day I did somebody else. The next day I did somebody else. And they were all great. Eric's great, Jen's great, everyone's great. But I came back to you because you just have this really special energy. I don't know, it's because you're from Michigan and I'm from Cleveland, and we have
the
this
Midwest
like
vibe.
Midwest thing. We were both eating, ridiculous foods as children or what it is, but like, and I think you do relate. You have such a big fan base. I saw Kat's post the other day, who is your favorite Beachbody trainer besides Autumn, and she said, Jared, you have something really special. Tell me a little bit, how did you even get to Beachbody?
It's so crazy. Like, I think to my last, couple years, and like, there's been so many like little moments that have sort of like pulled me in this direction that are just totally by chance. And so basically I lost all the weight, and, my North Star, what guides me, or what I'm most passionate about, I guess, in life is helping other people. Like, that is what that's what drives me. That's what gets me up out of bed every morning. So, I was working a 9-to-5 job, and excuse me, I lost all this weight, and I was like, what? Like, this changed my life. Cycling, like, I had this preconceived notion of what cycling was, and it changed my life. I want to be an ambassador for cycling as much as possible. So I'm like, I'm going to start teaching at the local gym that I was at. So started teaching at that gym. Long story short, my first class, the only person that showed up was my best friend, Mike, which was like the most, like, I literally thought that nobody was going to show up to that class. And the fact that he showed up for me that day was like so beneficial for me. And like, he didn't even realize until recently, like, how big of a moment that was for me that he showed up, because if it wasn't for him, I would have been in a room by myself. So long story short, I ended up teaching there for a while. Then the pandemic happened and I wasn't teaching at all. And long story short, I ended up finding this other company that they were teaching outside on the beach in Santa Monica. Started teaching there, and then I got a random DM one day while I was at work at my 9-to-5 from one of the producers over at Beachbody asking if I wanted to audition for this new platform. And I gotta tell you, like, I had heard of Beachbody before, but I didn't like really know about it. And I'll sort of divert a little bit and give you a little bit of a backstory. When I was in high school, I was on my high school baseball team. And again, like I was always an overweight dude. One of my best friends one day comes up to me. He's like, hey man, I saw this infomercial on TV for this thing called P90X. Come over to my place after baseball practice one day and we'll freaking get ripped, right? And here I am, like
we'll pull
in
our
high
hamstrings
school.
together.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, here I am in high school, like, I don't know what the heck is it. So I go to his basement after baseball practice one day. Never did it again because I was like so out of shape and not into fitness.
So hard.
That was my first experience with Beachbody, right? So like, so when the producer from Beachbody messaged me, I was like, oh, I know what Beachbody is. And so yeah, I went to the audition and, you know, the rest is kind of history. It's been like, it's been pretty insane. Yeah.
It's kind of cool because, you know, for those who don't know, what Beachbody does is, you know, there's an instructor and then they have all these screens behind you and they're called the podcast. And so I'm too scared to ever go on the podcast, but I'm going to do it now that you know me and you can
have to do it.
You can be like, hey, Rachel, I will do it.
Yeah. Okay.
But that must be such a thrill for you because, you know, Jared gets up and he's like, can I see my podcast? And everybody pops on. You must be like, oh my God, there's more than one person here. It must be like such a thrill. You know,
I did a few video on demands before I did my first podcast live ride. And so, and just to give you a little bit of a sense of like where I was at that time, one of my biggest fears in life is public speaking. Like I'm terrified of public speaking.
What?
It's crazy. So
I'm shocked.
Basically like, you know, my sort of like what's driven me through like the discomfort of public speaking is like the fact that, you know, I believe to my core that like cycling changed my life and I want to give that out and share that with as many people as possible. So like, even though I'm uncomfortable, like being able to share that message and hopefully get that across to as many people as possible, that's what gets me through the tough times, right? And so like obviously over time I've gotten a little bit more comfortable on screen and things like that, but like my first couple of classes were on demand or video recorded, so it was just me in front of cameras. My first class ever, I get on and I bring up the podcast, and it was such a rush of emotions because not only was it just a regular ride, it was also World Mental Health Day. And so like, you know, the bike has given me, you know, obviously a physical transformation, but also mental, like the mental health, like you can't even quantify it, like how much better I feel from a mental perspective. So like just being on stage in front of all the people, like people in Canada, people in all across the United States, like
crazy.
It was such a rush of emotion. And like, it's a responsibility that I think about every single time I get on the bike, is that like one bike ride, one class could be the first domino that somebody needs to make huge change in their life. And
100%. Yes.
That's what I think about. Like, you know, it's not just a class to me. It's like, it's literally an opportunity to help somebody get to a place where they want to be. And I think about that literally on a daily basis whether I'm creating my classes, creating the playlist or getting on stage. It's, you know, that's what I think about all the time.
How about when you were in St. Louis and you got on? I'm not even a coach for Beachbody, and I know about all of this because I follow everybody. And you know, if I didn't already have a full-time job, I would certainly be a Beachbody because I love it. But I saw that you were so excited that you were going to speak, and then I saw, you know, clips you posted, and so many people just like me would taking pictures with you. I mean, how did that feel? That must have been insane.
I didn't know. So they asked me to speak at Summit. And for those who are listening to the podcast and don't know right now, so Summit is like an annual convention for like all the Beachbody coaches and all the people at Beachbody. So, you know, this year there were like 10,000 people there. And so I had never, you know, again, like at the time I was like 7 or 8 months into Beachbody and didn't really know much about it. So they had asked me, they sort of like pitched this idea, do you want to speak at the opening ceremonies? And you know, of course, like we were talking about before we actually jumped on the call, like anytime somebody asks me something, I try, like if it makes me uncomfortable, like I want to say yes. Like if I'm uncomfortable or whatever, like that's, you know, I try to do that. Right. So they pitched me this idea. I of course say yes. And then, so I'm like basically crafting this speech to get up in front of 10,000 people. And to give you a little bit of context, like I said earlier, I'm terrified of public speaking. Like the most people I probably talked to in front of before that was probably like 30, 50 people, something like that.
Wow.
And
oh my God.
like, yeah, so I am like the month and a half leading up to this thing, I'm like waking up in the middle of the night with sweats, like nightmares, like, you know, nothing can prepare you for that. And so like, I'm just like trying to rehearse my speech over and over again. But like sort of the mantra that I created for myself, which I kind of was talking about earlier, is like the message. And I truly believe this as, you know, as I was prepping for this thing, like the message that I had to share was more important than my personal discomfort. Like the personal discomfort that I had, like when the cause is bigger than the personal feelings, like all the personal feelings go by the wayside. And,
exactly.
And you just have to focus on the mission at hand, right?
I just feel sometimes when I do this kind of stuff, like I mean, I'm comfortable now, but when I first started doing like, I do these videos all around town and all this stuff, I was like, even like a video where I'm like showing a house. You know, I'm like, this is the dining room. This is the living room. The first time I did it, it was a disaster. I mean, we took like 80 takes of just me being like, hey, everybody. I could barely get it out. But then now that I'm like pretty good at it, you kind of get out of your head. Like you're in another world when you're doing it, right? You're just kind of on. And and you know when it's good, right? Because when you're done, you're like, damn, that was good.
There was like, I was so nervous like I was literally like, I have so much nervous energy whenever I do something like that. Even before I get on stage for Beachbody, like my little like pregame ritual is just do like a bunch of like push-ups just to like get my energy, get myself amped up. And so like I did so many push-ups like backstage while I'm waiting for my turn. I had like a little slideshow that was sort of like going on with like pictures of my transformation and things. They introduced me. I ran right past the lady that had the little clicker. So I was just like on stage. And by the time I realized I was on stage in front of 10,000 people, I was like, I don't have my clicker. So I like had to sort of like voice and be like, okay, now you can go to the next slide or whatever. But like, you know, when I got on stage, like it was just incredible because like 10,000 people, like you go to some audiences and maybe some people are skeptical of what you're saying. Like the one thing I would say about that is that like everybody in that stadium was like rooting me on, and I could feel that, like I could feel the energy. So like that made me totally more comfortable than I maybe would have expected. But it was a blast. Nothing could have prepared me for it, and you know, it's an experience that I'll literally never forget.
That's
and
so
I don't know if I'll
incredible.
ever have an experience like that again. But
well, you probably will next year.
Who knows? Knock on wood. I mean, I would love to, but you know, we'll see.
Oh my God. Well, I just think the whole Beachbody community, again, I'm not being paid to say this, is just, it's so cool because it's so motivating. So, you know, one of the reasons that I wanted to have Jared on today was just like, as the year is ending and we're going into a new year, you know, people ask me all the time, what is it that you know, do to keep motivated? And I think, you know, accountability is such a big thing. So for me, you know, I love to post, you know, I always, you know, everybody in Beachbody, you post them all on your story. Everyone's like, great class today, got the bread or whatever it is. I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. And it is like that. I think the accountability and the community at large through Beachbody. And for those of you who don't know how it works, is basically, you know, it's been around for 20 years or something like that. And there's coaches, and you can have a coach. It could be me. I could be your coach. And then I'm not a coach, by the way. And then, you know, you can get other people to be, you know, in your coaching group or in your, what do they call it? Team?
Yeah. Team.
Do they call it team? Okay. Anyway, you know, we've all had stuff like that before, but this works because it's just tried and true. And there's so many amazing programs within Beachbody that can keep you motivated every single day. You can always ride, but you can also do like a million different, you know, weight classes, yoga, meditation, whatever. It's all there. And it's just so comprehensive. It just makes sense. And I love that. And it's freaking fun. And I like that I can do it with my dog. She just sits on her bed. And, well, when she's not stuck in an elevator, she watches me. All right, let's talk about this bread thing. Yeah. I don't really get it.
Okay.
Because I must have missed the memo, but I did order a shirt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for those of you who haven't taken my class, are just seeing me for the first time, my like catchphrase is "Let's get that bread." And so that started by, basically, I've sort of talked about my diet before I made my transformation, but like pretty much, long story short, pizza, carbs, bread of all sorts, like that is my guilty pleasure, right? And I don't think I'm speaking for only myself, here.
No, definitely not.
Nothing like pizza, right? So anyway, so as I was going through my transformation, I'd go work out with friends, or I'd go, biking with friends. And out here in LA, there's like a lot of like canyons and mountains around here that we, ride up and all this. So we'd go riding and we'd be at the base of the mountain and I'd be looking at the top and I'd say, let's get that bread. Like, let's get to the top of this mountain and then we'll like earn, a pizza.
It's like
or
a goal.
whatever,
It's like a mini
it's like
goal,
a goal,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I sort of would say it like tongue in cheek, like, let's get it, just like messing around. But then like my friends started to say it, and then like other people, and like it started to spread a little bit. And so like basically what started off as this like catchphrase or like whatever, kind of just like tongue in cheek, became like my motto or my battle cry that like if we can do hard things, then we can reward ourselves at the end. Or it's just like a constant reminder that the top of the mountain, there's always, just because the mountain's high doesn't mean that we can't make it. And oftentimes when the higher the mountain, the better the view. You know what I mean? So
totally.
So that's where
as
that's
Autumn
where it came
always
from.
says, Autumn always says, like, but did you die? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So I like both of those things, and like I say them a lot, but I love that that's, for those of you watching, like, sometimes people are like holding a baguette in their hand. I saw the chick with the ornament the other day, the toast ornament.
Listen, people it started off with just my group of friends, but like people grabbed onto this. You know what I mean? It's just one of these things where it's like, if it can, again, it's like sort of what I was talking about earlier. Like if somebody can take this and get some motivation out of it during their workouts, that's the goal, right? At the end of the day, if somebody can benefit from it.
You are really making a difference. And it's just one little piece of bread at a time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I want to ask you a couple more things. I want you to talk about Sun Cycle.
Yes.
Tell us, you have a little project on the side there.
Yep. So Sun Cycle, it's my own personal studio. We opened up it's basically a cycling studio right on the beach in Santa Monica. Beachbody opened up a ton of doors for me in that it gave me confidence to do things that are uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And really, like, it gave me a path towards fitness that I never thought I had. Like I said earlier, I sort of had this 9-to-5 job. I had a whole career, and I was balancing Beachbody and my career. And essentially I woke up one day, and this is, it's going to maybe sound brash, but like, I was going to my 9-to-5 and every day I would get there and be like, I do not care about this whatsoever. Like the thing that I was doing was not helping people. And at the end of the day, it was just, getting money for the company. Like that's the way I looked at it, at least, you know what I mean? And so like I was living like these two lives where at my 9-to-5, I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. And then when I was showing up to Beachbody, it was like, this is what I care about. And so Beachbody gave me the confidence. I left my job, my 9-to-5 job, to open up the Sun Cycle. Basically, we bring the bikes out on the beach every single day in Santa Monica. We have a sunset ride or sunrise ride. Right now we have, we're sprinkling in some sunset rides just because the sunset's a little bit earlier during the winter season. But during the basically the spring until fall, we have sunset rides as well. And it's just incredible. Like there's no, like, obviously BODi is great, but as far as in-person rides, there's no in-person ride that I have ever seen or experienced or come across that is anything like what we offer on the beach in Santa Monica. So everybody has headphones.
Really, really cool.
Yeah, everybody has headphones. The instructors right in front of you, and you see the ocean right in front of you too. So like we see dolphins, especially during this time of year, and like where else can you see dolphins jumping out of the water during a cycling class other than there? So
if people want, because I have tons of friends in LA that I tell, hey, you better listen to my podcast. So where can they, how can you sign up for a SunCycle class?
Yeah, so it's thesuncycle.com, or we have Instagram. It's at thesuncycle. If you also follow me, my handle is Sklarticus. My last name is Sklar. I'm all about the puns in case you couldn't I'm
gonna tag you when we post this, and so I'll put them all in there. But just if you want to go do a ride with Jared on the beach, which I have no doubt you'll want to do, and I'm definitely going to come and do one the next time I come to LA. Now that
100%.
Now that as I tell anybody who comes across me, I'm like, once you're in my world, there's no getting out. I'm like, I keep you. So
awesome.
I'm gonna call you and be like, I'm here.
Yeah, let's do it.
When are you getting married?
So the wedding date is November 5th of next year. We just got engaged a couple months ago. So really stoked. Yeah. I'm really excited.
Do you think it's weird that I know everything that's going on with you? Are you a little freaked out right now?
Listen, like when I first started at Beachbody, I had it's a miracle that they even found me, because I had no followers, no social media following whatsoever. Once, especially when I started Beachbody, but then basically when I went to Summit, and that's when I got a huge rush of followers.
Yeah.
Once that happened, I realized everything that I post on Instagram is public knowledge. So it does not surprise me.
If you could send some of your followers to me, I would appreciate that. When this comes out, if you could post it and be like, follow Rachael.
Yes, I will, but I got to tell you, we were talking about earlier before we started recording, I am the worst at technology. I'm the worst at social media. We'll
get your fiance to help you. She looks like she runs the back end of your business.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know where I'd be without her. But yeah, it was literally a month or two until I found out how to post a reel. So, I'm just...
Oh my God. Well, I think you're doing a great job.
The bike is my safe space. That's what I'm strong at.
That's your thing. And one other thing I want to mention is that I love in the middle of the ride that you almost always tell some kind of story. It's usually pretty inspirational. And does it just come to you when or do you kind of say oh, this happened, I'm going to talk about this today?
It's I don't know. It's sometimes it's I run into a situation that I'm like, okay, I definitely want to bring that up. And sometimes it's just spur of the moment. And honestly, the way I sort of approach things, I sort of talked about it earlier before, but I think of every class being an opportunity to help somebody or do something. Yeah. And because of that, I want to do something different. We've all taken, if you've taken cycling classes, they can be sort of a dime a dozen. And I just try to bring something, and again, I don't want to speak for other instructors, but the way I go about things is I want to be as engaging as possible. And if I'm just saying, go faster, go slower, climb a hill, that's not really engaging. So I try to bring a little bit of a different angle to it as much as I possibly can, and bring my own, I guess, flair, personality. And, especially when I was training for my Ironman last year, going through that experience gave me a lot of ammunition and things to pull from, I guess, as far as how to inspire somebody, or I just thought about experiences and inspired me throughout that training. Yeah. So I just try to pull from different life experiences.
You mention pretty often, and I hope I'm getting this right. We'll have to edit it out if it's wrong. Yeah. But it seems to me that you follow David Goggins.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I thought
I'm a huge fan.
So would you say that that's kind of like I follow you, you give me inspiration. Is that where you're getting some of your inspiration from?
I mean,
is he who you're getting some of your inspiration from?
Not only David Goggins, but reading his book. I read his book, I think it was the beginning of pandemic. So I'd already gone through, or I didn't read it, I listened to the audiobook, but it was right after I lost my weight, or went through my transformation. I started listening to his audiobook and got really big into his story. It's actually funny you mentioned that, because he just launched his second book 2 days ago, and I was actually listening to it before we got on today.
Oh,
so
really?
I don't know. You must have just I guess your ears were ringing or something. Yeah, but him. There's a bunch of other personal development books and other books that I sort of lean into, but it's sort of that genre of people who do almost superhuman things and are able to reach crazy milestones are the sort of stories that I try to tap into for sure.
Absolutely. And I'm like, in my real estate business, I have a coach, like a business coach, and there's a whole, they call it the ecosystem. And everyone leans on somebody like David Goggins or, somebody like, because real estate is a hard business, and you get, you wake up some days and you're always at zero every morning. Right. And it's just tough. And so having some kind of inspiration, like riding the bike with you is kind of where I start. That's where I get my energy. And when I don't, do that, like for the last 8 weeks, I haven't been able to, like, I definitely feel it. And then, so I've had to turn to some books. I've had to turn to some other ways to kind of get that push. If you can't do it, if you could do it in your mind and you can't do it in your body, it's nice. Right. So I would recommend to everybody that you have somebody that's really inspiring that you can, read or watch. There's so many amazing podcasts and it's endless information now. Like that's the best part of the whole social media thing is like everything's at your fingertips. You can find inspiration anywhere. Probably mostly from this amazing podcast that we're on.
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to ask you one more question and then I'm going to let you go.
Yes.
What was your favorite food growing up did you grow up outside of Detroit?
Yeah, Metro Detroit.
Okay.
Okay. Man. I mean, I guess
Stumped,
I mean, pretty much like growing up, any food I could get my hands on. But I'd say like Detroit style deep dish pizza. It's different than Chicago deep dish pizza. But that was like my thing. We also had it was called Coney Island, which is like a Detroit style food. That was like chili dogs, basically. Like that was my vibe. And honestly, like that still is my vibe. Every time I go back, I make sure to make two stops. And that's it.
When you go to where you're from, we all have this, no matter where you're from. But there's something different about being from Detroit or Cleveland. Like it's kind of nitty gritty. Yeah. Okay, you're at a Lions game. What's the one food or you could be at a Tigers game if you want. What's your food that you get, and then I'll tell you mine.
I mean, I
usually go towards like that you.
Yeah. I usually go for like the usually there's like a Little Caesars at like when I go back to
what Little Caesars pizza.
Little Caesars is in Detroit. It was made in Detroit, so like usually like at Comerica Park.
I loved Little Caesars growing up too. The pizza's square.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what you get at the games?
That they usually have that at like Ford Field or Comerica Park. But like if I just go to like a baseball game, I'll get a hot dog or hot dog and a beer. I'm a classic guy like that, I guess. Okay, I like nachos. And it's like I still kind of want to get them every time I go to like a Mariners game or Indians game or something. And I never do because I like them too. I can't do it to myself. But I went back to Cleveland for July 4th, and my whole entire family, we went to the Indians game. It was like 900 degrees outside, and we're sitting up like way up, and my 80-year-old dad is with us. Like we got everybody. And my little sister, who's also enjoys Beachbody, she's like, let's get some nachos. And I'm like, I'll go get them. So I run down and get them. I come back up, and she's like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, what? It's cheese and nachos. She's like, you didn't get it loaded with like all the like the jalapenos. You gotta get it
and the
loaded.
salsa.
Come on, yeah.
My brother-in-law was like, go back. So that's funny. That's my bread. That's what I would eat if I could eat anything. But
there you go.
Of course, I feel akin to you because we are both basically from the same place.
Yeah.
A couple of years apart.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you. Thank you for being here. I mean, I know how busy you are, and I absolutely have been you got me off my fear of riding bikes. Well, I know it's stationary. I'm aware it's not going to fall over, but it's a big step because I still said I would never get on a bike of any kind. So the fact that I get on it every day, it's in my bedroom, is a big deal. And I really just love when you come on the screen and it's like you're in, at my house hanging out with me. So I cannot thank you enough. I love your story, and it is so inspiring for people. I hope that people will listen to this and just be like, wow, okay, this is like, I can do it too. It's it's really cool. So I love you, man.
Thank you for inviting me. Like I've sort of like beaten a dead horse already, but like, being able to connect with people and help people on their journey is what gets me up out of bed every single morning. And so, whether it's just listening to this podcast or if anyone wants to reach out to me on social media or whatever, like I try to do my best to respond to like pretty much every message that I can.
You're great about it. I was shocked when you responded to me.
And so like I say it all the time, like if somebody has a question, just like, or anything, if there's anything I can do to help, just like reach out, because I do my best. And that's what I live for. You know what I mean? So as long as I can help people and help people move in the right direction or the direction that they want to on the way to their goals, I want to assist any way I can.
You are definitely doing it right. And I will tell anybody who's watching this, like if you are interested in finding more out about Beachbody, I would love to talk about Beachbody. It has, I'm fit, I'm happy, and it's just a great thing. And if you want to know more about the mixed bike, I just love that thing. It's amazing. And it's so, you can do all of your Beachbody classes on this mixed bike. The screen flips around, you can do your weights and everything. Anyway, if you want to know more, DM me. And as usual, if it's happening in real time, then we're going to talk about it here on Real Time with Rachael. Bye.